Hey doing everyone, welcome back. Well, you've probably heard the name, I'm blanking on his first name, but actually I'm blanking on on both of his names, right? Garcia, Abrego Garcia. I'm blanking on his first name, Abrego Garcia. The guy from, who lives in Maryland and was illegally deported to El Salvador after a judge ruled 6 years ago that he couldn't be deported to El Salvador. Not that he couldn't be deported, but that he couldn't be deported to El Salvador. But he got wrapped up in this completely no due process deportation effort going on right now. Where they're just rounding up whoever they want. Not going to give you any due process. We're going to send you to this prison in El Salvador. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if he's no longer alive. That would not surprise me at all. And Mr. Abrego Garcia, he's here legally. I should say. He was here legally. He had no criminal history other than a few traffic violations. Who doesn't get a traffic violation every now and then? It's been a while since I have, but oh yeah, it's happened. A couple of years ago, I got a speeding ticket in Wisconsin, but traffic violations happen. You get a speeding ticket, you get a parking ticket. Yeah, maybe you didn't stop in time for that yellow light and it turned red on you. But they're saying that he's an MS-13 member. Okay. Even if he is, why was he denied due process? Why is he denied due process? And some people are saying, well, illegal immigrants don't get due process. Well, first of all, that's not what the Constitution says. The Constitution says every person. Not every citizen, every person, when it comes to the rights that are protected by the Constitution. So, that argument already out the window. And you know what? Let's just say, sure, illegals don't get due process. Illegal immigrants, you don't get due process. But without due process, how do we know if they're here legally or illegally? You tell me. What, just because his name is Abrego Garcia? What if, there just happens to be some guy named Ramos, or maybe it's spelled Ramos, but it's pronounced Ramos because, whatever. His family has been here so long that the name is just adapted over time. If your name is Rodriguez, or Hernandez, or Villanueva, or Hidalgo, Guardado, Chavez, Diaz. What, you don't get due process because we think you're here illegally? It's not the way it works. That is not the way this works at all. I tell you what, for anybody who seems to think that you don't get due process because you're here illegally, well, I tell you what, how about this? How about I accuse you of an absolutely heinous crime? Just accuse you. No, no basis behind it, but the accusation is there. Because that accusation is there, you don't get due process. You don't get a trial. Nope. No trial for you. Just go to prison. Why? Because I said so. I made the accusation, and that's all we need. Right? So if, let's just say we've got a guy named Hernandez living here in my town. I don't know if I would assume we probably do have someone named Hernandez, but I don't know that. And I'm gonna just call up ICE and say, hey, you got Mr. Hernandez over here, and I mean, he's got to be here illegally, right? Actually, there are people in my area from the Marshall Islands. If you're not familiar, Marshall Islands is a U.S. protectorate. So, they are here legally because they're from the Marshall Islands. But of course, ignorant people just assume that all brown people that speak broken English are from one of those Mexican countries. Oh yeah, you probably remember a few years ago when Fox News actually had that on the lower part of their screen. So many Mexican countries. How many Mexican countries? I only know of one Mexican country. I mean, unless Mexico has been expanding. But yeah. Take one of these Marshallese people, right? I've worked alongside of them. They're good, hardworking, honest people. At least all the ones that I've met have been. Good, hardworking, honest people. And they come here and they work their jobs, they pay their taxes. And yet, because I could understand where somebody would not know the difference between Marshallese and a Latino. I can understand that. But suppose one of these Marshallese people gets sent down to El Salvador. Yeah, great. And now, referring specifically back to Abrego Garcia, a federal court told the Trump administration that you got to bring him back. And Trump administration said, no, we don't. And it got appealed to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, lower court said, you got to bring him back. So you got to do what the lower court said because they got it right. And then when Propaganda Barbie, whatever her name is, the press secretary, Carolyn Levitt, gets up there and says, they didn't say that. They said we have to facilitate, not effectuate. And, he's an MS-13 gang member, which has never been proven. Prove it. If he is an MS-13 gang member, and if he's a violent felon, then yeah, get him the hell out of here. We don't want him around. Nobody wants him around if he's a violent felon, right? I would hope. I mean, people are getting rounded up for tattoos. I have some. What, you gonna round me up too? Of course not, because I don't fit what you're looking for. I don't fit what you're looking for. I mean, so now we have the administration saying, well, we can't, El Salvador has custody of them. We can't just go get them back because El Salvador is a sovereign country. Okay, well, we could send them to El Salvador. So why can't we get them back from El Salvador? And then the president of El Salvador said, well, I can't just send him back to the United States. What am I supposed to do? Just send this guy back to the United States? Yes, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Mr. Bukele, or whatever the hell your name is. Yeah, you're supposed to send him back. Our administration is supposed to ask you to get him back, and you are supposed to send him back. But our administration saying, hey, we can't do anything because he's in El Salvador, and El Salvador is saying, hey, we can't do anything because the United States said that we can't just send people to the United States, which kind of goes against everything that Donald Trump has ever said about, they're sending their criminals. They're emptying their prisons. They're emptying their insane asylums. Yeah, they're sending them here. So we're playing this little spinny game here of, hey, we can't go get him because he's in El Salvador, and El Salvador, hey, we can't send him to the United States. You could make a deal to get these people illegally sent there. You can make a deal to get them back. And not just Mr. Abrego Garcia. Because there are others. In fact, most of the people who were sent there, they have either no criminal record or they have non-violent criminal records, minor things, petty theft or whatnot. Nobody is saying that we can't enforce our immigration laws. No one is saying, hey, just let anybody and everybody in. Nobody is saying that if they are violent gang members like you're alleging, set them free. You know what? Fine. Let them out. We don't want them even locked up. No, nobody is saying that. First of all, if they are violent gang members, you can do one of two things. You can deport them, or you can lock them up in a prison here. Right? Those are your options. But before you do either of those, due process. Due process is a must. Trust me, you'll want it if you're ever falsely accused. And sounds like Mr. Abrego Garcia was falsely accused. Bring him back.